Hi, Mick.
Good to meet you, Nitin. Thank you.
Good
Hello
to
Archana.
and
meet you
welcome
too.
to
Hi,
we are
Archana. Thank you so much.
we are live and I'm starting. Yeah. Uh, Hello and welcome to the eighth episode of our amazing podcast series, which we have been hosting for last more than 3 months. Voiced, where we are bringing four pillars of the education system together: learners, parents, educators, and employers, job creators, policymakers, and we are here to listen everyone's ideas and views on how we can co-create, recreate, redesign, and rethink, reimagine the education system, which should be the learner-centric education system. Before I go ahead and introduce you to wonderful panel here, as always, as every like in every episode, we are bringing some most beautiful minds on this podcast. We'll just keep 1 minute silence to gather ourselves and to be in the moment. So we'll have a silence of 1 minute. Welcome back. It's so amazing to see all of you here. And I'm your host, Archana, living a very minimalist and sustainable life and mother of two self learners. Um, we are also trying to be on a zero outsourcing route for education, food, and wellness with my amazing co-host Mick here. Mick is from US but currently is in Thailand, and he actually is a wonderful teacher. He is a favorite teacher from thousands of children from 20 different countries, and he is a technology disruptor. Amazing educator as well, and he has been co-hosting this podcast with me from the starting. So welcome, Mick. And
Thank you so
now,
much. Wait.
yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce you to our learner for today. She is Radhika Gupta. She is from Lucknow, and she is also an homeschooler. She is a founder of ANNRA. Interesting. I wanted to know, yeah, I wanted to know what does that mean. But she has been learning she is a self-directed learner, passionate swimmer, and a reader. She is currently pursuing her 10th from NIOS, National Institute of Open Schooling. She also owns a YouTube channel with her twin brother, and where they interview teenagers like themselves who are doing some great work in their fields. She also recently awarded with the title of YY Local Teen Hero India 2021. Wow, wonderful. Congrats. And the question
Thank
she is holding is why are we blindly learning what is being taught to us? Wonderful. Welcome, Radhika.
Hello,
Uh,
thank you.
yeah, we have now as a parent Sandhya Viswan, and Sandhya is an old friend. She is also mother of two self-learner boys, and she has been an instrument in, like, she has been in network for last many years in the self-learning families and groups, and she is very resourceful person. She also works a lot along with the educators, holding some experiential learning programs, and she herself also as an educator trying to redesign and recreate the education system among her network as well in Bangalore. She is also director at Mud Pie Education in mother of two self learners. Also, she is kind of working on a like a new platform right now, which you will know soon. Uh, The questions and the favorite quote she has is success comes from finding opportunities in problems. Wow, wonderful. Questions she's currently holding is actually too many questions because all of us, I think, hold too many questions anyway. One being on the influence of society on homeschool children and how to help them integrate without losing out on their main values. Yeah, very valid questions, Sandhya. And just before we joined the live, we were talking about how her son's experience has been in homeschooling, and her one of the son is finding like he is actually like uh, in a mode where he can find some of the flaws in homeschooling as well. So we would love to listen that, Sandhya. Our third pillar for today is Nitin Dhawan as an educator, and he has been doing some amazing work as well in the self-learning, homeschooling, unschooling community. He also actually administers a very big WhatsApp group where parents are there. Curious Parents is a group's name, and they at Orient Square they have been involved into kind of a very innovative and creative learning in the community in Delhi. He's recently also working on the Sustainable Development Goals of UN, so working many things on that front as well. His favorite quote is the beautiful quote, which basically conveys the meaning of education or aim of the education is Tattvam Asi. It's the phrase from our Indian Vedic system from Ved that like I just want to know like who I am or like what I am or I am myself, something like that, which I think Nitin will tell more about it. But he was an entrepreneur with fulfilling experiences running two technology ventures. Is convinced that the world around us is about to unimaginably change with developments in AI and robotics. So he prefers himself to be being called as human developer rather than entrepreneur. Nitin co-founded Orient Square with his wife Jyotika. The goal of Orient Square is to empower the new generation to be conscious global citizens of the world who align growth with sustainability and inclusiveness in line with UN Sustainable Development Goals. And very opt question, and I think perhaps it's the question for all of us here is what is the purpose of life? Welcome, Nitin. Uh, and the fourth pillar, like very important pillar of the education system here is the job creator and employer. And we are blessed to have Sapna with us. She is from IIM Bangalore, and she has been holding uh, executive positions in very big companies here in India. She is ex CMO and global brand head at OLX. Probably all of us in India know what OLX is. It's a big company, like in the buying and selling of used goods, Mother, she's also mother of uh, two boys, and one of them is a very young entrepreneur, whom we hosted last week. She is also environment enthusiast, and she's on a path of self-awareness. So she just got down from her big corporate role, and she's been exploring her life, slowing down a little bit. And the quote I hear is, I just love that, Sapna. Let me tell you, it's in Hindi, Mick, so I can translate it for you later. But पा लेने की बेचैनी और खो जाने का डर, अगर हम इससे निकले तो पलट जाए जिंदगी का सफर. Wow, brilliant quote, Sapna. I really admire you for putting it out there, as a CMO of OLX, she was responsible for leading marketing growth and PR for OLX. Before that, she served in various leadership roles at Procter and Gamble, Reckitt Benckiser, Nestle, Bennett Coleman in India, Singapore, and Canada. Um, Before joining to OLX, she was independent advisor to many startups, where she worked closely with entrepreneurs to unlock growth opportunities for startups. She currently lives in Delhi with her family. She feels concerned about climate change and is constantly looking for hacks on how we can make easy modifications to our daily activities to reduce our negative footprint on the environment. Beautiful, Sapna, and I'm with you on that. I've been leading that life and doing every bit of something which we can all together like do and probably create a lot of awareness for the environment and you know zero waste. Uh, so welcome, Sapna. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Mick to take you through three different rounds of the podcast here, and then we are going to have a rapid fire round. So welcome, Mick.
Great. Thank you, Archana. Welcome, everybody. This is our eighth episode. We have um, had very intriguing and inspiring conversations in each of these. So, very interested to speak to all of you. We always start our question round with our learner. The reason we are here is to help learners, even those who are self learners, and they often don't have a seat at this table. They should have a seat at the head of the table, helping us as the adults around them to recognize what things they need from us in order to be on this self-learning journey that we hope that they'll be on. So, Radika, welcome. Thank you for being our learner today. And the first question is yours. And the question is, what do you think about the structure of education? How do you think it benefits learners' lives? And how do you think it can harm learners' lives?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak, firstly. And I'm really grateful to be here talking to both of you. So, coming back to the answer, I feel that specifically in the Indian education system, as children, of course, the main motive is to mug up things so that you can all memorize everything. And at the end of the day, you can go to the school and go write yourself an exam and then pass it. So, I feel that the harm that I personally feel that I'm getting is the power of thinking, the power of creation that somewhere is dead in me because what I'm expected to do is memorize that textbook, go write that. So there is no where my brain is being used or where my creative ability is being used. So that is what I think is not something I really appreciate or can be changed. And secondly, but I think there is a huge benefit of the system is that every day that we get the opportunity to go out, be with friends of our age, interact with them, people who are elder to us, people who are younger to us. So we kind of make strong bonds with friends. We learn how to socialize with different kinds of people. So that is something that I truly really like. But I think yes, definitely, the one thing that Indian education system has more emphasis on is marks, is on mugging up, on getting a secure job, or dictatorship is something that is being followed rather than you are being your own learner, you are directing the way you want to learn. So that is something I feel.
That's a great start, Radhika, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's not just India. That's globally the public education system, from my experience, is exactly what you say, which is the thing that learners like the most generally is social, right? Seeing their friends and socializing. The things that they dislike are memorizing largely useless information to impress someone with a mark that they get on a test. And I
Right.
really love that you articulated that's not allowing you to think and that's not allowing you to create. And those are two things that are going to be absolutely necessary for you when you do eventually hit the job market, which, regardless of what you choose to do, if you can't think or create, good luck. Memorizing information, robots, computers do that better
Exactly.
than us and better than we ever
Yeah.
will be able to. So, thank you for getting us started with a really solid answer and well thought out and articulated answer. Um,
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Radhika. So, Sandhya, our parent, is next for a first round of questions. Sandhya, why do you think parents have become more obsessive and protective about parenting, particularly with this generation of kids?
Okay, first of all, good evening, and thank you for having me here to be able to share my insights and listen to a lot of great minds talking about this. To answer your question, and to generalize, of course, I've seen both ends of the spectrum. Parents were not really bothered, and the other spectrum where other end of the spectrum where parents are really bothered about what they consider education. So I think mostly with that sizable group of people, it is the fear of the future for their child. They think they are responsible to ensure that the child has a safe career option, makes lots of money, takes care of their family. And in that bid, they tend to overdo and overprotect, and also think too much on the learning path, on what do they need to do. And that starts very early, especially in India. I've seen that it starts right from primary school, where the parent wants to ensure that the child, like Radhika just said, the competition is too high. So they need to ensure that my child is in that rat race. Though they might verbally say, I don't want my child to be in the rat race, but I see that they're preparing the child to be sure. Everything else is a bonus. So following your passion is all an extra after you take care of this. I think that's where it is. It is the fear of missing out, and the child missing out, and parents thinking they are responsible to ensure that, rather than the journey of learning and enjoying and observing what the child is really good at.
Yeah, very well put. That's something I've noticed as an educator myself with parents. A common theme is they're making a lot of decisions based on fear, and they're pushing their kids towards being performance-based learners, which causes them to think that the end-all be-all of their intelligence is based on any test score. If they don't do well, they're not good enough. And that leads them to make easy choices as opposed to running headlong into adversity and challenges. They're like, no, 1 + 1 is 2. Look, I got an A on my test. And that's not what we want for our kids, And so very well articulated, Sandhya. Thank you so much. Our educator, Nitin, these are the questions that I got to answer when I was a panelist. So I hope you enjoy them as much as I did. Your first question, what are the things you love about education in its current form? And what are the things that you hate or strongly dislike?
So, Mick, I'm learning in my new avatar as an educator. So there was a time when I disliked structured learning completely. In fact, we didn't want our daughter to go to a conventional school. So Archana already spoke about the community that I'm running, and there's been a lot of learning there. I've also looked at the unschooling movement closely, and I somehow have started to develop some respect again for structured learning. So one of the discussions I want to have with people who are in the unschooling space or homeschooling space and self-learning space also is structured learning versus free learning. So, I do appreciate some aspects of the structured learning a lot. So what I don't appreciate is when that structured learning is, you're asked to mug up, or, somebody just writes on the board and wants you to make notes. I hate, when teachers ask you to make notes. I hate the concept of making notes, honestly, at all. But I do believe that the way learning can be accelerated with the structured learning, there's a lot of merit in that as well. So I want to try and marry a lot of freely thinking, free learning with the structured learning as well, because in a way it feels like reinventing the wheel if you don't have that sort of a curriculum and structure in place. So I'm trying to figure out, how do you marry the two?
Well, I think you bring up a really interesting point, Nitin, and that it's not a binary choice. We often make it an unnecessary binary choice. There can be structure and still be choices, right? You can still open up different pathways and allow children to choose their path. And then once they choose their path, provide structure for them down that path so that it heads in a direction. Structure doesn't have to be rigid. It's kind of like when you talk about traditional or progressive education, why is it an or? Why not take the best elements of traditional education as a foundation and then allow them to progress out of, 13 years of just general education? That's not beneficial to these learners. Yes. So you what you're talking about, we and Arch and I have talked about this before on other episodes. It's just that is not a binary choice, nor does it have to be. There can be structure along with choice and free learning. It's a matter of opening up these different pathways for kids, and then giving them some structure along that pathway towards the learning goals that they're creating for themselves. So those two can definitely work hand in hand. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you for your first
But
answer.
I'd also like a lot more context to the structured learning, which I see missing right now. For example, for mathematics, there's a lot of context which is missing. So you start to learn the art. You learn algebra, you learn calculus and trigonometry and all of that, not really knowing where you're going to be applying them. And some of them do learn where to apply it, but there is a lot better way to learn some of these things. So I mean, somewhere I got to recognize how calculus should probably be taught from grade 5 and 6. You don't have to wait until grade 11 and 12 to learn calculus, because you could be taught those concepts of how a sphere is also a result of a calculus, or a circle is also how a result of a calculus. So it's not necessary to be taught that way, to put certain things in context. So some of
Right.
those things I feel there's an opportunity to do it differently. And I also appreciate, so I don't believe that the Indian education system has been condemned, or is really there, because the new education policy seems to have a lot of the right ingredients in place for facilitating the critical thinking aspects, and getting you to think, reducing the curriculum, emphasizing on all the right things, even the early age, using Montessori-based learning system. I see a lot of things in intent at the right place. So we have to see how it gets implemented. Although I am still confused about how good is it to send kids to schools at the age of 3. That's something which I'm very confused about.
Yeah.
Between 3 to 5,
It
3 to
really
6.
it depends on what they're doing. The kids can
Yeah.
be in a social play-based environment at 3 and benefit from it greatly. Should kids be tracing letters at 4 years old and learning to read words at 5 years old? No.
But
It's been
is it good
proven
to
that
mandate
waiting a
them?
little bit longer is very
So
helpful.
it's been made mandatory now. It's been made mandatory that at the age of 3 they must go to school. If they are not going to go to school, then they are missing out on things. So I'm not so sure about that. I'm a little
That was
confused.
really great insights, Nitin, and I think we would love to hear some more from you. But we are moving on to Sapna right now. So
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you for your first round. Sapna is our job creator for this episode. Sapna, your first round question. As an employer, employers fill a really important role in these pillars because you provide livelihood through employment. And really, that's the end goal that most parents justify for their education choices for their kids. So, as someone in that position, do you prefer degrees or skills when deciding on who you would hire for any particular role?
Sure, Mick. You very rightly said that's ultimate, proof of the pudding, whether the employers are willing to bite this or not. And as an employer, my personal views, and this is this is thinking which is developed over talking to several candidates, hiring people, and figuring out what has worked out, what has not worked out in the interest of the business, and so on. I think there are three things. First of all, that whether there is enough skill and capability on the part of the person who's evaluating to be able to ask the right questions, to be able to figure out whether things which way the whole communication conversation is going, and whether the evaluation can be done rightfully or not. The second would be the confidence of the system to be able to absorb people who've not been through a conventional system, and how well they are willing to experiment with this phenomenon. I'm using the word experiment because it's still fairly new and the numbers are still very, very small. The candidate could be very good, but if the environment and the whole structure into which they have been brought in follows a very conventional logic, a very good candidate also can fail, and that would be a very unfortunate outcome for both sides. The third thing would be the confidence of the employee or the incumbent itself. Because the larger population is still coming through the conventional system. How comfortable does a person who's not been through a conventional system feel about his or her own skills, and how freely and independently they are able to navigate through the system? I've also seen cases where people who who have very strong credentials, who've not been through conventional system, and they have been brought in, but they have been so overwhelmed and weighed down by the system that they could not sustain. So in all, it's a combination of many things. It's not ever any one thing. The whole, we are talking of a very dynamic change, a very strong fundamental structural change, and this will take years to break down the previous system and stabilize. And there are several things in place, and I just named the top three that were important in my experience.
Yeah, those are great factors to consider, and as well, I don't think it's been brought up before by a job creator, but the consideration on the side of the employer. Are they capable of discerning which skills or degrees are most meaningful to be a good match for their culture at that particular job? So again, I think it comes back to it's not always a binary choice, skills or degrees. Some things you need a degree, and some things the skills are more important. So very well articulated. Thank you everyone for that first round. We are back to our learner for round two of our questions. Radhika, thank you so much for your first answer. For your second one, self-learning by nature is non-competitive, and as we've talked about, school is overly competitive. Are discipline and motivation needed, or specifically to you, how do you keep yourself motivated, learning, and growing as a self-learner? Oh, you're on mute still.
All right, I'm back.
There you go.
Okay, thank you for the question. So yes, definitely discipline and motivation are very, very important aspects of one's journey, be it a normal school life or a self-directed learning path. So motivation and responsibility are definitely very important. I feel that in self-directed learning, I have been given the freedom to choose the way I want to learn, direct the way I want to set up my routine, or I want to, set my syllabus by myself. So that definitely comes with a responsibility. And to act responsibly, I would need motivation. And to be motivated, I feel motivated personally when I have a plan, when I know what I'm doing, or I set a basic plan of 3 months. Okay, I'm going to be working on this. So I feel internally motivated that this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to achieve in the next 3 months or 2 weeks, whatever the time span may be. So I feel more motivated when I have a plan, when I have things planned out. And secondly, I also feel motivated by the fact that I have been given this opportunity to direct and learn the way I want to. And a lot of children, irrespective of a lot of children who have not been given this opportunity yet, but I hope they do, because they're still getting up in the morning, going to school, that rat race. But I have been given the opportunity to kind of direct the way I want to learn. So I think that really motivates me that I should make the best out of this opportunity.
Yes, this is something when we talk to self learners, especially, that you all have different experiences, you're different ages, but there's a common theme here, and that's you have freedom and you are able to choose your own interests. And when you're choosing something that's interesting to you, motivation is not the issue, right?
Exactly.
You're motivated because this is something you want to do. You're creating your timeline. You're choosing your subject matter. And so I love that we hear that from our self-learners as kind of a common thread, regardless of your experience, your age, where you're from. I'm being given freedom and I'm allowed to pursue my interests. And when it comes to that, motivation is not a factor. Motivation is the easier part for you in that respect.
Because I'm going to be finding ways to do what I
Right.
like.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Radhika. Sandhya, for your second round question, we touched a little bit on, fear driving parents, which it does in this generation too often. How do you think that affects parents in terms of how they force their expectations onto their kids? Why do you
Okay.
think parents do that? Is it something besides fear, or is it just the fear?
It is a fear. Now, I would speak from the angle of homeschooling parents and not regular parents who send their children to school. Even they are fearful. I see by the time the children are around 11, 12, is when they suddenly, it kicks into them, oh, is my child at par with, school going children? Because there are many queries coming in then. Does your child know this? Does your child know that? And I think that fear starts then for a homeschooling parent who very confidently starts off when the child is very young as a toddler to unschool or homeschool, and then they're like, my child isn't there yet, or my child doesn't have the skills to compete with them. So they are getting into the journey thinking that this is a solution. The homeschooling is a solution to all the problems that the education system, puts out there. And I don't believe in that. This is my personal opinion. I will talk about the fear, but I think even homeschooling parents have this particular fear because of the conditioning and the expectation. So
Yes.
they do expect that they are responsible for this child's learning, to ensure it's a perfect learning that happens, and the subjects or the content is the goal. And I feel that is too much pressure on a child, rather than being at school where, with a number of children in a classroom with an educator, it's still spread out. While with a parent, when the expectation trickles down, it is too much pressure on the child. I think with homeschooling families also, I've seen a lot of this by the time the child reaches middle school, and then later. Another factor is socialization. They have their set expectations on how a child needs to socialize, or how an individual needs to get along in society. Again, it's very different for each one of us. However, the expectation is there, and so that also becomes pressure on the child as well, because it's an expectation in the parent's head.
Yeah, conditioning. I love that you touched on that, because I think parents and students are conditioned. As a homeschool parent, at some point you're comparing yourself to a school-going child, but why? What is it that's so special about what they've learned that you should be comparing your child to that, to the antiquated subject matter, to the fact that they can memorize it and regurgitate it on a test, like Radika said? That what you want for your child? Well, we're conditioned to think that is the bar that we're trying to reach as parents, and for the students themselves. And it's going to be difficult reconditioning, unschooling out of that mindset, and finding different criteria, right, to have our kids
And it
aspire
is
Very
to.
well.
confusing to the child, because neither is the child conditioned as we were, or our generation was, and neither is the child having any other understanding of what they need to be doing. How can they follow their own journey if the parent is giving such confusing messages?
It's
Yeah,
very
and
well put together, Sandhya. I really appreciate that you are bringing this out. And entire things comes down to what, as a parent and as a child, you think what is the purpose of education. Instead of life-oriented education, if you are still conditioned, and that's why I always talk to the parents that it's more unlearning and learning for us rather than our children. They know what they want to do, and they will figure it out, but it's more of an unconditioning and unlearning for us as a parents to come out of our fears and expectations. So if parents are choosing this route because this system is bad or it's not working out for their child, it's a wrong choice, I would say. But if you are clear on why, what is the meaning of education in your eyes, and then you start doing it, probably it will make more sense.
the other part
In-
you touched on, the social aspect of it, is something homeschool parents feel that their kids are missing out on. But again, bullying and mistreatment, or being forced to only hang out with the same age kids who live in your area, as opposed to the opportunity to choose your friends based on common interests, or kids that might be a year or two younger or older than you. Which one's better? We're so conditioned to think school is where kids socialize. Not necessarily. Homeschool groups do a great job of meeting together and finding common interests among learners, and having that be the establishing factor of their socializing, rather than, well, these kids live near the school and they're also 8 years old, or whatever the case is. So excellent, Sandhya. Thank you so much. Back to our educator. So Nitin, this is one that I really liked as a panelist. If you had the authority to design a learning space of your own, a school of your own, what does that look like? What is included in that, in your vision?
So, Mick, fortunately, I have the opportunity to design. I have designed something. I am running something, but I'd like to touch upon something more. Um, so, for one, I think my concern about how AI and robotics is going to come and change the world is big, and I feel that there is a need for our children to grow into becoming more human. I think the only way to be able to address the AI world is for humans to become better humans. So to enhance those qualities, which make us more humans, and that's maybe creativity, that uh, uh, that critical thinking, creativity, but also in just being. So there's the emotional aspect of empathy and all of that, socialization, but also the very aspect of being with yourself. So I feel that that's also an aspect which needs to be enhanced. I'm not focusing as much on that. Those are some of the aspects which I feel we need to emphasize in our learning environments for children to develop those qualities, those aspects of compassion, of being, very importantly, to be creative. So what does it take to be creative is to be with yourself and be able to connect with something beyond yourself, to let that imagination work. And that's also going to be very, very important for humans to stay relevant in the AI world. And other than that, I think I feel one is project-based learning, which is something that we are doing a lot of now. Also, a lot of personalized learning, in the sense giving people the opportunity to grow in the areas that they are really good at. So having very personalized learning growth path available to them, and also somewhere where the teachers play the role only of a mentor. Nobody goes and tells them what it is, but asks them the right questions, maybe indicates to them where they can learn from, and see how they are growing. And that's part of what we are implementing in what I'm doing right now, in an environment where students are just learning about sustainability, and the importance of that, and how that goes on to save the world, and do it by themselves.
Yeah, we see this very eye to eye, Nitin. You hit the nail on the head with so many different elements of this. Humanity is going to become a much more important capital. I use the example of doctors. There's already robots doing surgery for doctors. Do you know what robots can't do? Offer compassion, bedside manner, make you feel okay. Same with teaching. There's plenty of digital education tools. I can put a hand on your shoulder and say, "You're doing so great. I believe in you. Keep working hard." So it's shifting the teacher role in the classroom, at least, from all-knowing dispenser of knowledge, which we are not, to facilitator, mentor, guide, support system, project-based learning, cross-disciplinary, social emotional learning, and then what I like to add in is creative technology. Kids spend too much time passively entertaining themselves with technology. That should be more well balanced out with actively creating, learning, and building using technology, so that they have a better balance in the use of their screen time. So it sounds like I love everything that you're talking about, and couldn't agree more with that shift needing to happen now because of AI and robotics and automation. Without it, kids memorizing information are dead in the AI fueled world. There's no room for them to do anything. So excellent. Thank you so much, Nitin. Round two for Sapna. As a job creator, what are some of the skills, aptitudes, qualities that current grads or people applying for jobs you see? What are those things that you see missing in them as they're coming to you for work? What are those skills and qualities and aptitudes that they're missing?
Sure. So Mick, when we choose candidates, is my voice echoing? I think, is it fine?
No,
Should I just continue?
you sound fine.
Okay. So when we choose candidates, of course, there's a certain hygiene level of check that is done, and there's a protocol that's followed, and there are best practices, and especially companies which have been around for long know the business and know how to carry on the selection process and so on. So all that being taken care of, I think what could be missing with a candidate who's hired is the ability to, there would be two things that I have experienced mainly. One would be the ability to learn new things and to figure out as things evolve, because specifically I'm in a field where technology is changing, and what we do as a part of our business is highly dependent on what tools are available and what media is available. So when we are talking to the consumer in marketing, we have to be where the consumers are, and that's constantly shifting.
Mm,
So the ability to be able to understand where things are shifting to, what would be the next big thing, also to be able to circumvent competition and go get there faster is definitely a big competitive advantage, and so on. uh, so all of these innate skills could be something that could be missing, because uh, again, the selection process is heavily dependent on, tell me what have you done before. We
mm,
often select candidates based on their experience, and we often deselect or reject somebody based on the fact that they haven't done what we are looking for. So that's
yeah.
ironical, because what we are looking for has not been done, ideally should not have been done anywhere in the world before, and you need people who are able to create new things. So that's one thing which could be missing. The second one could be the emotional quotient, and I think that's something that I feel very strongly about. And this is not age dependent, this is maturity dependent. So you could find younger candidates who are high on EQ. That's something which is very important for me personally, and I think it brings the teams stronger, much better. The ability to take feedback, the ability to accept changes, the ability to navigate through tough team members, all these are things which are very, very important to be able to survive anywhere. It leads to the employee's own mental well-being. It leads to a very good environment within the team and the well-being of the entire team. So these are important things for me.
Yeah, there's a list of 2030 and beyond future of work skills that I see come from World Economic Forum. And it touches on a lot of what you're talking about. Right at the top is creativity and social intelligence, but there's also embracing change, right? Adaptability, resilience. If most of the jobs for the future of work for these kids 2030 and after haven't been invented yet, what skills can you teach to that? Foundational skills, social emotional skills, things that are agnostic of where things go. Something's new, great. Let's tackle it. Right? Having that adaptability to change and that attitude, that's really going to serve well in the future. Great, excellent. Thank you, Sapna. To
Emotional,
our
yeah, emotional quotient is something I really appreciate, Sapna, you brought this up, because I think in the world of competitive education environment, that is one thing which our young generation is missing a lot, and that is something which is must need. The education system should be actually focusing on this important aspect. So, yeah.
absolutely. Let's see. Our third round questions, starting with Radhika. Um, what do you feel that you need from the other three pillars to feel more empowered and supported as a learner?
Right. So I will start with the educator. Uh, no, I'll start with policymaker first, actually, because recently the national education policy, like Nitin Uncle said, has changed, and it's actually really, really amazing. And I would just want that if it's actually practically possible, and at the earliest, if we start implementing it, it will be great. And educators, especially, go with the change. They accept it and embrace the new policy, because a lot of educators are rigid about, no, we are with the traditional the syllabus that we are following. We don't want change. So I would want that if educators are more accepting to the change, and parents are respectful to the change as well. They are with the times and they accept the way that the things are changing. The national education policy is changing. So I think that would be great if people embrace it.
Yeah, excellent. You're right about that. Teachers are some of the most resistant to change people out there. My fellow educators. I try to lead in a different path, but I appreciate that you have pointed that out. There has to be flexibility there if we're going to make changes from
Yes.
within. So, our third round question for our parent for Sandhya. You know, who is the child that you think parents or that you as a parent want to give to the world, and what role do you think that you play in that learning journey for your kids?
Okay. Honestly, I don't think any parent actually thinks about society or the world when they're trying to mold their child. It is either about the child or about themselves, and or the journey of the child, or where they are going to be at in the future. It's a very, very small number of parents who do think about who they are going to give out to the world, or to think of community, at large. I'd like to say something in this regard. It's also because of what Radhika said about the NEP. It's very good. Once it's embraced, but that is the biggest challenge that we have, is for everybody. All the pillars that you're talking about needs to embrace this shift in mindset. And to be honest, the NEP had been implemented by a state in India in the early 90s, and it failed miserably. Totally implemented, and it failed. The reason was this: I did a little bit of study on that, being my home state, and the mindset, the shift in this very same aspect that you're asking me about, on what we are releasing the child. Nobody thinks from that angle. The child or the individual is part of the community. And I also believe that it takes all kinds to make a society. We cannot say that this is what it is, this is the way to go. Again, we come down, it boils down to expectation. Okay, what does society want from you? What do the people that uh, constitute the society wants from you as an individual? We need to move on from that. If that is possible, only then can we think from an angle of, this is a society, what kind of individuals are we molding? Unless we think of community and society, we will not be able to do that. And personally, I feel parents, be it school going children's parents or even self learners, it is mostly about the journey, be it about knowledge and knowledge retention, or about the journey itself and what are they learning about, or are they just happy doing what they are doing and learning skills as they go along. Yes, and as Nitin was saying, it there needs to be a balance, each individual differently, of a structure and flexibility within that framework or structure. So to answer your question, I don't think any of us think about the society just yet.
Yeah, I think parents are so caught up, as you're saying, in just their individual child or their children and their family, that the rest of that kind of goes out the window. And the some of the shift is gonna. We talk about a lot about it starting top down, meaning job creators first are gonna have to accept kids from other, that didn't go to top university with top marks. If they see skill sets within them, then parents will start to see that that's a valuable or alternative path to the traditional way. Kids, I think, learners would embrace it in a second. Most kids I know, their answer to what do you love most about school is what Radika said: seeing my friends. None of them are saying, you know what, I loved doing algebra yesterday, because most of them don't see that as useful in their life. Those are usually proxies for other skills, and there are better proxies in existence that actually interest the kids. So, yeah, I love where our conversations lead with these same questions, just based on all of your different points of views and the way that you see these. Nitin, for your third question, similar to Radhika's, is as an educator, what support do you need from the other three pillars in order to implement widespread change that you're trying to do?
What are the three pillars? Pardon my ignorance there.
For the other three, besides you, would be parents, learners, and then job creators.
Okay. Well, for parents, it's slightly simpler. I think there is this quote from Khalil Gibran, which emphasizes how children are born through us, and they don't belong to us. So if parents are able to realize and recognize that, I feel that in itself would be very, very important. That would be very powerful, where they become enablers and not custodians, or people who want to drive everything for them. So I would imagine, as more and more parents are able to recognize that, and I see that happening, that shift, starting to happen amongst some of the parents. From amongst the educators, I think there is a need for a lot of reorientation to happen amongst the educators. That's the biggest challenge that we have, at least in India, and I'm sure anywhere else. With the NEP coming in, the reason why it may not have succeeded or may not succeed even now would be if the educators are not reoriented. towards what needs to happen, and for them to recognize why it is what it is. But I also at the same time feel that uh, between 1990s and now things have changed a lot. um, the external drivers like the AI, I mean, I keep harping on that, but the external driver is very, very powerful. And it's not just an internal driver that free learning is good and it's the way to go, but it's an imperative now. If you don't, change, our children are going to be doomed. And that sort of realization, and if the government or other people are able to bring that sort of realization, that will also accelerate, some of the changes that we want to happen. Um, and as for students, I think, um, just expose yourself. Don't be in a rat race. There is no reason to be in a rat race. Once they also realize, I think they can also educate their parents um, and manage to create a change. So their own awareness, their own understanding, like what Radhika's gotten herself. Um, if more and more students are able to understand, what is the purpose of education and how they should educate themselves, or what it's all about, I think we do well.
Yeah, I don't think you're harping on the AI thing. I think that people aren't panicking enough, and I think the language is too soft in terms of, well, the traditional education system is not helpful to kids. I would go much further than that and say that it is harmful to them and damaging to them and causing them to be passive learners with no passion for what they're learning. Performance based instead of mastery oriented. Those things are not just not helpful to kids. Those things are dangerous and harmful and will cause them to have great difficulty finding any kind of career path for themselves in the future if we keep them on this road. So I think at some point the language is going to have to become much more dire, I think, in to show parents and everyone else the immediacy with which these changes need to take place. It's a lot more dire situation. So I don't think that you're overplaying that at all. I really think that there's not enough talk about that, to be honest with you. So yeah, I really appreciate that answer deeply. Our last one for our job creator, Sapna, similar to what the other panelists got for this one, how can the other three pillars support you in a way that helps you as a job creator create, secure livelihoods for more people and more types of people?
Yeah. Let me focus the answer, make a little more on what the employer can do, if you could allow me that, because I've thought a lot about that. I think what's essential is that again I would boil it down to two things. One is a lot of room for experimentation, because as I was mentioning earlier, there are a lot of things which are being done for the first time by anybody. The environment has changed, the tools and the technology has changed, and hence the companies need to be more willing to allow people to experiment and fail small. There has to be tolerance for that. I'll just give you an example. When I was in PNG many years back, we almost used to have a full year cycle of planning of what we would do the next year. So we would start around 10 to, 8 to 10 months in advance. For our next year's marketing plans, we would draw it out in great excruciating details, month by month. What would be the product launches, what would be the marketing to support it, or what would be the communication, and so on. I mean, now just fast forward to today's time. If you do anything like that in business today, you are sure to be failure. Marketing plans or any planning for that matter, even product planning inside the company cannot be more than a quarter longer. And I'm not talking of basic platforms. I'm talking of features. And those are what then come together to form the marketing plan for the year. So given this scenario, there should be a lot more room for experimentation, room for failing, and failing smart. I mean, it's not just a blanket glorifying failing, but failing in a smart way, with taking learnings in a simultaneous way forward. So that would be one. The second would be a lot of diversity in the team would help for the kind of structures that we are talking about. specifically mix of talent which is more mature and which is more seasoned, along with younger people in the team. I think what a more seasoned, and when I say seasoned, I would specifically refer to the age part. What more seasoned people can bring is traditional values in business, traditional business values. I'm not talking of ethical values or business conducting values. I'm just talking about the planning cycles, the way the numbers are forecasted, the conservativeness, or the kind of aggression that's required, the balance between that. So all of this can be brought in by the more mature part of the team, while the alacrity, the speed, the quickness to learn, the experimentation, all of that can be brought in by younger people. And so that's diversity on the age part, but there could be other aspects of diversity as well, which are again very important: gender diversity, regional diversity, and so on. So all of these put together, just while they look very unrelated to the question and the topic that we are discussing, but this just provides a very potent environment and a very conducive environment for this kind of a phenomenon to succeed. In the absence, one could go about thinking that we have ticked all the right boxes, we've made all the right choices, we've been smart enough to address everything that seems to be directly impacted. But what is it that's missing? And these could be some very seemingly insignificant, but important factors that should not be overlooked. So that is what I would talk about.
Swapna, I really like the idea of diversity of age, and it's something I talk about a lot. What young people are really natural and brilliant at is things that are tech based, right? Most of us that have context for the pre-smartphone world, it's a learning curve for us, and it's a steeper one than it is for anyone who's younger than us. What do we have to offer them? Some of what we were talking about before. I think the biggest one: interpersonal communication and soft skills. Interpersonal communication, we had to talk to people. We had to look them in the eye, make eye contact. And kids are talking into screens nowadays. And so there can be a greater exchange between the younger and older generation in that way, where we have something of value to give to them that's disappearing quickly. We can most certainly empower them and make them feel respected and heard by allowing them to teach us things as well. Now you have a give take where we're both teacher and student, both learner and educator in these work dynamics, or even in the education space. So, wow, what great conversation for our 12 questions, our 3 rounds of questions between our 4 pillars. Excellent work. Now I'm going to turn it over to Archana, and you are about to get hit with the rapid fire questions. Best of luck, everyone. And Archana,
Mick, before we get there,
rapid
Thank
fires.
you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mick. It was so deep conversation. Like every episode, we listen to different views, and more or less we are converging on the same, like similar things, but then it's put up in different ways, and like coming from different backgrounds, different domains, and how we are progressing on thinking about recreating the education system. So thanks a lot, everyone. And the rapid fire round is
Archana,
kind of very very short answer round, because we are already like almost an hour, like 60 minutes we are touching, so we'll have 10 more minutes to finish this podcast. But I think the first question, I generally, it's a surprise question, which is for all of us, like how observant we are, and while we are looking at different things, we are part of this podcast. I have put a poster of voiced, where we are actually talking about transitioning from one mindset to another mindset for recreating and redesigning the education system. And I have put some words there which have, we all as a community, we have some fixed meanings to those. So, and how and where do we want to transition with, while we create the recreate the education learner centric education system. So the first question for everyone, anyone can answer that, is where do we want to go from growth mindset to question mark mindset,
Prosperity.
yeah, prosperity, yes. Beautiful. And then we where do we want to go from the word? So we know that information, like we are just focusing on the word, but the new education system should be looking at, instead of word, where should be transitioning from word to where.
World.
Okay, Radhika has done all her homework.
Yes.
Thank you. That was really great. The first question for everyone, and we can go in any any sequence, but it's for everyone. Like in the current education system, one thing, and like please stick to one sentence. What do we want to start new in the current education system? What do we want to stop, and what do we want to continue in the current education system?
I would say start individualized learning plans, stop standardized testing, continue and grow different pedagogies that will support these individualized learning plans.
Beautiful. Yeah, please. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. Yeah. So start more well-rounded learning, not just whatever has been defined in the current very narrow perspective. Stop memorizing a lot of rote learning. I think there is merit to it, but not there should be guardrails, and continue. The social aspects of learning are quite strong, and I'm happy with that.
So
Radhika.
I would start better compensation for the teachers. More respect. For the teachers. And I would stop the teachers also to stop focusing on getting the notes created. And what I would like to continue is maybe such strong learning institutions to continue to grow and prosper. I think that's a achievement of the civilization. I mean, I love the concept of schools. They just need to reorient a little bit.
Very good. Radhika?
I would like to stop that there is one definition to intelligent in school. So I would want to stop that definition and kind of would want there are different definitions of intelligent in school. Secondly, I would like to continue with the social aspects of school. And three, I would like new is more skill-based learning, more project-based learning in school, more
Great.
project-based learning. Yeah.
Great, great. Okay, one thing you unlearned in your life or want to unlearn?
I actually had to unlearn that the goal is the content or knowledge for learning. So I've moved on from that, and my children are unschooled. And the beauty is that they are able to do what the school system wants when I let them free. So I actually unlearned that.
Great. Yeah. Yes, Sapna. Go ahead. You are on mute.
Something that I have unlearned is that there's a lot of cross pollination between different industries, different segments, different categories, and there is a lot that one can look at and adapt. I used to think that I'm a part of the CPG industry, and there is enough and more to learn within the industry. But I think there's a lot beyond that, and one can continue to get ideas from everywhere.
Beautiful. Nitin?
I'm just thinking, Radhika, go first.
Okay. I would like to unlearn, or maybe I'm learning, is that it's more than competition. It's actually a hand-holding process. So more than a competition, it's a hand-holding process. So I'm trying to unlearn it, and I'm working on it. It's more of a hand-holding process.
I would like to unlearn the way I was taught poetry, to appreciate poetry, and some of those things, because of which I never got to do that.
Okay.
So to be able to appreciate the things that I haven't learned to appreciate somehow by unlearning the way I was taught.
Okay, great. Okay, so if you were to write a book, what the title would be?
Okay, mine would be Unschooling for an Unknown Future.
Okay, Sapna.
Unlearn uninterrupted.
Uninterrupted. Wow, wonderful. Radhika or Nitin, whoever wants to go.
I think maybe Into the Wild. I can just think of this right now. Into the Wild, maybe.
Okay, it's already a book called Into the Wild. So,
Okay. Into the Wild 2.0. That works.
yeah.
I think
Nitin.
mine would be when I do start to get it. It would be on the purpose of life.
Hmm.
When I have some more certainty.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I can feel that from your the favorite quotation itself. So, great. A top three must-have life skills um, for
Um,
you. Yeah.
I wouldn't have anything that's common. I think it's to personal to choose what your strengths are and work on it.
Hmm. Okay. Sabna.
Um, Sorry, I didn't. Could you clarify the question
It's,
again?
so it's top three must-have life skills
For an individual, right?
for an individual. Yeah.
Yeah. I think self-awareness would be one very big one. Integrity and a spirit of exploration.
Wow. Great. Nitin, Radhika. Just
So I would also go with self-awareness as one, compassion, and learn to learn.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Radhika.
I think I would take empathy and compassion in one. And second, I would take the communication, the art of communication, being an effective communicator. And third, I would take the ability to accept the way you are,
Hmm.
acceptance. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I have one more. Uh, um, Conviction.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay.
To be able to have that conviction and follow through.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. The fourth question for everyone is meaning of success and meaning of happiness in one word.
Okay, so I would
Both. So you have two words to speak. Meaning of
success. Okay.
happiness.
So success would be advancement or moving forward, which is two words, and happiness. I would go with content.
Hmm. Yeah.
For me, success would be content and happiness would be peace.
Hmm. Okay.
I would copy Sapna.
I think happiness would be peace and success would be satisfaction.
Okay. Great. The last common question for everyone is what common practice or belief as a collective community uh, we want to unlearn, you know? So,
So I would think what needs to change is that everyone learns in the same way and labeling individuals. I'd
hmm,
like to. I think that needs to change.
yeah.
I would think that anything we do, we should look at it as a larger goal for the society. Uh, like if I can just take a half a minute and ramble here, if some new product is launched, it might make things convenient for a certain set of people, but for the larger society, maybe it has negative environmental impact. It doesn't add value. It's exploiting a certain resource or people or set of natural resources. So I think one thing, and there's no particular organization which is evaluating or bringing all of this together, and that's very very largely missing in the way that companies or industries think. So that's something that bothers me, and I wish. Uh, I think it's a very utopian dream, but that's something that I wish could change.
No, it's a beautiful thing you brought out, Sapna. Really appreciate you bringing that. Nitin.
So it's something similar to what Sapna said, but in a different way. So it's about somehow getting rid of that sense that to survive, I must compete.
Hmm. Okay.
I don't need to compete to survive. Somehow I can collaborate, and how the society how the organ works is also how different cells collaborate for a similar function, and they don't compete with each other for an organ to function well. That sort of sense and understanding to come in, and sense of competition to
Yeah.
go down.
Radhika.
Yeah, I think for me it would be that everybody has a different way of learning. So we can't cart an individual to, and all the individuals to a certain way of learning. So everybody has a different way of learning. I would say that.
Okay.
So
Yeah. One size fits all.
yeah,
Okay.
we need to be open
Um,
to that.
yeah. So we now have individual questions for each one of you, and we start with the learner. What is your favorite time pass?
Watch a film,
Okay.
Netflix, or
Okay.
sketch,
Next
or sketch
question.
on my notebook. There are two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question to Sandhya, as a parent. One habit your children hate most about you, your parenting
I
style.
I actually recently went and asked them this very same question, and they had no answer. I think because we've believed in accepting each individual as they are, even within the family unit. So
Hmm.
we might have disagreements, but that doesn't we don't generalize on we don't like this, or we might say we don't like that particular thing. uh,
Hmm.
I don't think we use that term at all. We don't say we don't like it. We just say, can you rethink what you would like to do? So
I
I
know
asked
it's
them this
very
question,
positive
and
way
they don't
to
have an answer.
very positive way to look at that. I was just jokingly I was saying that there are so many of them that I can't put just one thing my children don't
They
like.
didn't. They didn't. I might have about myself as a parent, but they didn't. So I was like, okay, cool.
Oh, that is really, I think unschooling or self-learning opens a
my,
like
my,
very broad horizon for all of us to be
I
like
think so.
more human. That's what I have figured out in our experience. So
Right.
that is something wonderful to hear. For the educator, Nitin, one thing you absolutely hate, but still do on a daily basis as an educator. You are on mute.
Give my clothes for washing. There was a
No.
time I didn't like to give my clothes for washing, and I just put them in the sun. I used to love that. Don't give them for washing.
No,
I still
the
have to do it
question.
because my wife insists.
No, as an educator on a daily basis, like while
Okay,
you are with the children, what is one thing you absolutely hate but still you have to do?
I can't think of anything, Archana. I have, I don't work for anybody, so I do what I like to do, and I'm creating what I wanted to create. So yeah, I mean, I'd go back to give my clothes for washing.
Sure. For Sapna is one absolutely must-have skill which you cannot compromising when you are, hiring a candidate for any position in your organization. So,
Yeah, it would be integrity.
okay.
And that includes integrity of thought, integrity of communication, integrity with their work. So it's quite all encompassing, and it sets a high standard. But at the base of it, it'll be integrity.
Yeah, I think that includes more or less everything, in a kind of nutshell. So wonderful. Thanks a lot, everyone. It was again, amazing, engaging conversation we are having, and Mick and I are enjoying every week, every once in 2 week, this kind of conversation with some amazing folks we know, and we would love to bring more people on this podcast. Our pipeline is kind of looks like we are like for next 3 months we are having enough, panelists. But we would love to know from your network as well. If someone wants to join, we would like to listen their ideas and their views on that. And Mick wanted to conclude, you know, with something you found out in this episode, Mick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always intrigued by everyone's answers because everyone comes from a different perspective and a different set of experiences their own of their own, and yet we find so many common threads and views among us, no, regardless of our backgrounds. And I always find that the most interesting overall at the end is kind of reflecting back and thinking about, how much we all really have in common as, kind and loving and compassionate people who want better for kids and young learners. And also what Nitin was talking about with the AI and automation, that's something I think about a lot. And it's really made me think that I might have to be a little bit stronger once I'm outside of the education system, which I'm working towards, much more strong in the language of what traditional school is doing to kids right now, because it's not just that it's not that great for them. It's bad for them, and it's going to hurt them in their futures if we don't make some changes quickly, or at least give them something complementary or to add to it. If parents are insisting on keeping them that system, we're going to have to add something to that, or they're going to be left behind in their future. So I appreciate all of you for your inspiring thoughts, ideas, and intriguing answers. It was a really great conversation.
Yeah, thank you for being the co-creators with us on this wonderful journey we have been having. And we would love to create kind of an ecosystem where all four pillars can come together, and we can all create and co-create something which is learner centric, which is the place where we also unwind ourselves, and unlearn so many things which we are conditioned from many years. So thanks again, and have a good night, and we'll be in
Thanks,
touch.
everybody. Great meeting you all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah. Bye bye. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye
everybody.
bye.